Once you didn't put a picture of like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or something.
This is one filter and this has come after and more than after. What is it?
That's half of our number. No, that's right.
And somebody is doing dal, right?
Somebody is spinning dal and got rajma also.
Yeah, because lot of
First I was thinking
Do the
this and
story.
this, and this in this we have my work. And like
Just two. Okay, wait, no, that all this one. Why is this so zoomed in?
Wait, dude, how do you
And then you,
how do you book house?
oh, it's like if you go, oh yeah, you try to go to full screen. It's fine if you can, because that thing is like hidden.
How do you do that again?
It's like cut out, you're supposed to go to the settings or the
Wait, because he's not.
Just leave it, it's fine.
Wait, don't connect your laptop because he's gonna connect his laptop.
Yeah, no, he just wants to
Yeah,
you can take it out.
And one more last one chalu ye dekho second chalu last page left.
Joyful.
Oh,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. gonna sing something normal. Okay. Okay. Should I start? Should I start? Okay. I know. Should I start? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
G-A-U-R-A.
It's correct.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Following the instruction.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Your is correct. Everything is okay. I know because I am getting it there. My computer is coming correctly. Only the TV is not coming.
So that is my desktop is coming. Why is my screen not coming? That's my desktop.
No problem, it's good. We just have to change one thing here. So if you go to the where you were before, where it said duplicate screen. Okay. So you're clicking it and it's still not coming. That's what you're saying, right? So if you click duplicate, it should.
Why is this not working?
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Because that's your desktop, right? So it should.
That's my desktop.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to our last session with His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So, we're going to concluding the topic that we have is spiritual and material balance in our lives. And originally we had 3 topics there. And he travels internationally giving classes. He also has authored 27 books. He's got a couple of books right now. And one of them is part 1 of part 3. So you can see he continues writing as he travels. And he was one of the first persons who started a daily blog on Bhagavad Gita. And I said 4,000 yesterday, but it's the number now is 5,000 postings and the blogs that he has on daily Bhagavad Gita. He also explains everything very scientifically, as you saw, and I think a lot of us here, young congregation members, really appreciate the way he explains and delivers the classes. So I'll not take much of his time now. We'll hand over the mic to Prabhu. I'm really amazed that he's taking a night flight. He's apparently traveling to Chicago. So we're very, very grateful. He did not take this evening off because he's traveling at, I think, about 11 o'clock. So he has to leave here at 9. So very, very impressive. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for making time for our congregation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So you can move my chair closer to that and shift the focus so that both of them can come in the camera. You can move this ahead. this process. Stay down closer also. No, but those of you sitting here, you may not be able to see. Sorry for these technical inconveniences. I call this Tugra Karma. There is Ugra Karma and there is technology Utpanna Ugra Karma. So that is Tugra Karma. Tugra. So you seem to follow me wherever I go. Sorry you had to be caught in that. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us also that we can understand the path by which we can come towards you through this troubled material world. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for being here today. And actually I need some warm water. I have water bottle. Can you give it to me? In my bag, what bottle is there? Just fill that in. So today we are discussing about how we can balance material and spiritual life, and especially what are the practical things we can do in that. So I'll be focusing, this is a three-part session. The first, I talked about problems, how problems occur, and then I talked about the purpose, how Krishna is the Paramartha, but we need Artha to pursue the Paramartha. And this last part, I'll talk about the process. Okay. This is slightly in the way. And I'll talk about three broad principles over here in the, using the acronym ACT. So A will be adaptability. That adaptable. So what does being adaptable mean? At one level it means being flexible. Now, when we try to be adaptable, how do we go about doing that? Basically, if we consider the metaphor of a tree. Now, a tree that survives has two distinct aspects to it. One is that it needs to have strong roots. Otherwise, it will be uprooted. At the same time, the tree also needs to be ready to bend. As I say, a tree that doesn't bend will break. So bend, not break. So the idea is that whenever we are trying to live a life of principles, There is a certain thing which we need to be completely, this is non-negotiable, this is fixed, there's no changing about this. At the same time, while the tree has to be completely firm in its roots, if the tree is just as firm vertically, when storms come, sometimes the storm may be so forceful, it might just knock the tree down completely. So the strength of a tree comes by these two distinct aspects. One is that it has to be, that one part of it is to be completely firm. The other part of it needs to be flexible. So, similarly, Srila Prabhupada said, when we practice Krishna consciousness, that we need to be firm with respect to the principles. And with respect to the details, we need to be flexible. So, firm in one thing and flexible in another thing. So, adaptable, what does it mean? That we need to be ready to adjust. However, when we adjust, how do we adjust? That's what we'll try to discuss. So, first is just understand the principle of being adaptable. So, when we are being adaptable, Krishna also offers this multi-level approach many places in the Bhagavad Gita. For example, 12.8 to 11. He gives 4 levels at which one can practice. So first in 12.8 he says, Mayi eva manava adhatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya. So just be absorbed in me. That if you live in this way like this, Ata urdhomna samshayaha, you will already be living in me and you will come to me by that. Somebody said this is not possible for me. And Krishna says next level in 12.9 he gives us, if you cannot have absorption, you can have attention. Generally attention requires some effort. Pay attention, you see. When somebody is absorbed, we don't tell them pay attention. They're already almost naturally, effortlessly absorbed in it. Krishna says, Athachittam samadhatum na shaknosi maistiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichhaptum dhananjaya. That if you cannot do this, then pay attention. Now, if we cannot pay attention, so basically we could say this is the sadhana that we do. Now, if we cannot do sadhana, then Krishna says that you work for me. You do service to me. These are actually 3 levels for connection with Krishna. That abhyasepya samarthosi mat karma paramo bhava, mat karma, work for me. So we can't always do sadhana, we can't hear classes constantly, we can't do hearing, chanting constantly, then we do some services. We are of scriptural basis for this. I'm not going to go into that. But the idea in this adaptable approach is that Krishna is presenting bhakti, or specifically could make it spirituality in general. There could be 2 different visions of spirituality. One is that it is digital. The other is that it is analog. So digital means what? It is a 1-0 logic. If you are doing this, then you are spiritual. If you are not doing this, you are not spiritual. Analog is, it's not 1-0, it's a spectrum. You could get 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 0.3, 0.2. And 0.2, 0.7, 0.9, they're not 0. So the digital approach is that if you're not doing this, you're not a devotee. But okay, there is bhakti or spirituality, it is a matter of degree. And if I'm not able to do this, I'll do this much. I'll do this much. So now based on these 2, this particular previous verse I talked about and I'm talking about this. So which is the more correct understanding of spirituality? Analog, yes, correct. Now there is a way to understand that it's digital also. At a moment-to-moment level, we can either choose to serve Krishna, choose to act in a purposeful way, or we can choose to become resentful. So in that sense, at one moment we can be in Krishna, another moment can be in Maya. Now we can be sliding from Krishna towards Maya also. So there is a way to look at it in digital way also. But I would say there is some accuracy to this. But this is much more relevant for us. Now what does this mean? If you understand that we are going to be adaptable means that when we are practicing spirituality, there is a range. Instead of thinking of it as 1, 0, that if you say this is 1 and this is 0, it's not just like digital would mean that this is 1 and this is 0. The separating line is very sharp. If you are above this, you are a devotee, you are a spiritualist. Below this, you are not a spiritualist. But spirituality is more like a range. And if this is a range, what this means is that there is an aspirational level. Aspirational level is, okay, this is what I would like to do. Maybe every day I want to wake up early in the morning. I want to do some Mangalarti. I want to do some chanting early in the morning. I want to do reading some books or hearing some classes. There is, we could say, ideal or exemplary or desired aspirational way I would like to live. And it's good to have an aspirational level. However, life often comes in the way. And the aspirational level may not be possible all the time. But if the aspirational level is not possible, we can have at a bottom level a non-negotiable level. So, spirituality, when we say we are flexible, there's a range from the non-negotiable to the aspirational. So consider, for example, food. Now, we may say that if somebody is seriously practicing bhakti, we understand that the food that we eat affects our consciousness strongly. So we would want to offer the food to Krishna. And the best standard would be that there are farmers who cook the food, or who harvest the food actually, they raise the food with love and devotion, in a mood of service to Krishna. Then we get that food, we cook that food, we offer it. And in a prayerful mood, properly we offer it to the deities, and then we take the food. So that would be the aspirational level. Now sometimes that may not be possible. If you are traveling too much, suppose somebody has got a job where they just don't have time to cook. And they have to choose between, say, either they spend time in cooking or they do their basic spiritual life like chanting or something like that. Now if they have a choice between the two, what do they do? Which would be more important? At least some level of sadhana needs to be there. So then they may decide, okay, whatever food I get, I'll just offer it in their mind. And sometimes we may not be able to offer it properly also. Just offer it in the mind. And we may be staying in a hostel, somebody in the mess. Now this by no means naturally the good standard or a high standard. But it is okay. But if somebody goes to non-negotiable, if somebody says, okay, I have no option, so I'll eat meat. Then that will go below the non-negotiable. So there is a range from aspirational to non-negotiable. And this can apply in various areas of life. That when we are trying to practice spirituality, how much we can practice. So somebody may say that, we have daily morning Bhagavatam class, I would attend daily Bhagavatam class. Okay, that may be possible if it is good. Sometimes physically it might be possible, sometimes digitally it might be possible. If not possible, at least once a week I'll come for some satsang. Somebody may say that, now I'm reconnecting with many of my school and college. One is that nothing is negotiable. Every single thing has to be done. So devotee means, devotee has to wake up at this particular time only, devotee has to eat only these foods, have to be offered to Krishna in this way, devotee means you have to chant your rounds in this particular way, devotee means you have to wear this kind of dress. Even if you go to office, you should wear tilak and go to office. You should not be afraid, you should wear dhoti kurta and you go to office also. There is a serious devotee. Now we could make everything non-negotiable. And if we make everything non-negotiable and nothing negotiable, then what will happen is, we will create unnecessary trouble for ourselves. So, why might there be unnecessary trouble? Like I talked earlier about dharma, that we belong to various larger units. Ultimately we belong to Krishna, but we belong to particular units. Isn't it? So, if we want to if some devotee works in the police, or some devotee works in the army, and devotee says, I'll go to the army, but I'll wear dhoti kurta. Dhoti kurta is not the best clothes to wear if you want to fight a war, isn't it? So each particular role may require a particular thing. And we need to be ready to. That is not necessarily non-negotiable. If we are going to an interview, we have to have the best appearance over there, and what people will consider as the best appearance may vary according to culture, time, place, circumstance. That's why this principle is Desha Kala Patra, that time, place, and candidate. According to that, we need to understand that some things have to be negotiable. But if everything becomes negotiable, if everything becomes negotiable, if I go to company and if my boss offers me alcohol and if I say no, then what will my boss think about me? My boss offers me meat, I don't want to displease my boss. We need our intelligence. With the intelligence, with the buddhi, when Srila Prabhupada asked, how do you differentiate between the principles and the practices? Principles and details. So Prabhupada said it requires some intelligence. So I'll talk about intelligence a little bit more. But the idea is that there are big things in our life which are like the principles, and these should be non-negotiable. And there are small things in our life, relatively speaking. And small things, they should be negotiable. Now, what is a small thing and what is a big thing? We'll discuss that. But the idea is that we need to have some level of flexibility. Otherwise, we will not be able to function. So, this adaptability is understanding that according to time, place, circumstance, certain things can be adjusted. They need to be adjusted. So, for example, Srila Prabhupada came and started doing Krishna conscious outreach in the West. Now, initially, when he got storefronts, the storefronts did not have traditional temple architecture. They did not even have, say, deities facing in the east. But although those things were not there, somebody may decide that, okay, I cannot attend programs every week, but once a month I'm going to attend some programs physically, and other times I'll join online. Have something that the basic limbs of bhakti, some level of connection we need to have. So adaptable means each one of us may need to decide that this is non-negotiable for me. And other things can be negotiable. And this is non-negotiable level for me. This is an aspirational level for me. So once we understand this, there's a range over there, the spectrum, it gives us some breathing space. It gives us some room for maneuvering in our life. Otherwise, we feel overwhelmed by everything that needs to be done at a particular level of practice. So now, first what are the acronym I was discussing? ACT. So A was adaptable. Now, adaptability, how do we do that? For that, we need contemplation. Contemplation doesn't mean contemplation on sense objects. Contemplation means contemplation on our life. Deep thinking. Okay, in what role am I right now? What is the thing? What is the Deshkala Patra for me? And accordingly, what is important and what is not important? What is a big thing and what is a small thing? So when we contemplate our situation, each person, according to the time, place, circumstance, they will decide what is more important and what is less important. So now I'll give some examples here. These are to illustrate how the big thing and the small thing can be different according to time, place, circumstance. Now this does not mean that it will always be like that, but according to time, place, circumstance. So once Srila Prabhupada was invited to the house of a life member. Life members were people who were patrons for him in India. So he came there, and normally as devotees we avoid onion garlic also. So when the food was cooked, one devotee noticed there's onion in it. And he told Prabhupada, there's onion in this. And Prabhupada said, there's no onion in this. He said, no, Prabhupada, there's onion in this. Prabhupada became great. He said, there's no onion in this. Then he took out the onion and brought it in front of Prabhupada. Prabhupada, there is onion in this. Prabhupada didn't even look at Prabhupada, look at him. There is no onion in this. And then Prabhupada was so grave that the devotee became scared. And then that devotee went back and sat down. And the devotees took the food And then while going back, Prabhupada said, for a traditional Indian family, if some sadhus come to their home and they're offered food, they refuse food and go away. That is like a dharmic disaster for them. So he said it was our mistake that we did not clearly inform them what kind of food we take. So Prabhupada said we should be careful about this in the future. Now does that mean we all start taking food with onion and garlic? No, that's not the point. At that particular point, Prabhupada said that taking care of the service sensibility with which the people were offering the food, that was more important than adhering to a particular principle. So now again, when you say negotiable, it also has to account time, place, circumstances. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada found that in the Raj Bhog that was offered to the deities, there was some onion. Would Prabhupada say there is no onion in this? No, Prabhupada would be, take the Narsimha avatar. How did onion come over here? So, the key point is that we need to contemplate in particular situations what is the big thing and what is the small thing. And when we contemplate according to time, place, circumstance, then we will be able to understand, this is where, then we will be able to decide what to do. And that's why Krishna consciousness is not just a matter of rules. It is more a matter of relationships. It is a relationship with Krishna and it is a relationship with others in relationship. It's rules. It's not that it is not rules, but it is more a matter of relationship. I have a relationship with Krishna, others have a relationship with Krishna, and how best can this relationship be furthered? So when we keep this principle in mind, then it's not that the rules are important, but they may not be the most important thing at a particular time. This happened with one devotee in India that he is from Maharashtra. So in Maharashtra, Ganesh Puja is a very big thing. And in this family, they used to do Ganesh Puja for many generations. And he started practicing bhakti. But yes, that's their preference. That's why I said, what is a big thing and a small thing may vary from person to person. But for other people say that I want to maintain this relationship. And better maintain this relationship. So say if, now all of you are in America, if you go to India and your family, they worship Shiva or Durga or whatever. And they want you to go to if you're coming to India, go to Shiva temple, go to Durga temple. Now if you say you will not go there, then we go there, we go to India for a week or 15 days or whatever. And then if we don't do that, that will create so much problem, so much tension in the relationship that afterward, throughout the year, the relationship will be tense. At that time, we just go to the temple. We can, our internal consciousness can be, these are empowered souls. We may not consider them to be supreme, but they are also great souls. They are empowered by Krishna, and they are empowered in far more extraordinary ways. We can seek their blessings. So the point over here is, when we are flexible means, we try to see the big picture. The big picture is what? It is not just important for me to follow this rule right now. It's important. But it's a lifelong journey toward Krishna. And in that lifelong journey toward Krishna, what will have an effect on that journey? How much? We need to consider that. So for example, now you have to practice bhakti. Because of the Islamic culture, there's not so much open availability of sense gratification. Not that it's not there, but it's not so open or brazen. And then because that culture is so different, most devotees can't mix with that culture so much. So many people who go there actually become more connected with the traditional culture from which they have come. There are many vibrant devotee communities over there. So now, even in the Middle East, in some places we do Rath Yatra, but we hire the biggest hall in the town, in the city, and in that hall we go round and round and do the Rath Yatra. So the idea is that there are some things which need to be negotiated. So if there's a legal limitation, obviously we'll negotiate it, isn't it? So we negotiate, but the point is, how can we remember Krishna? How can we help others remember Krishna? So if we keep this principle in mind, that ultimately what is important is, I want to have a lifelong relationship with Krishna and I want to make that relationship stronger. So for that, with that in mind, what is a big thing and what is a small thing. Now we may say, how do we decide that? Yes, to some extent we can talk with senior devotees, we can hear from others. But based on that, what is going to affect how much that relationship? That is important. So there are small things. We say everything is important. Yes, everything is important. But everything is not equally important at each moment. Say if I am giving a talk. Now, I will try to look at everyone who is in the audience. But if somebody is then asking a question, at that time I'll focus on that person, then I understand what question they are asking. Now, everybody else in the audience is also important, but at that particular time, that person will be important. So, if we make everything equally important, we make ourselves important, isn't it? If somebody after the class comes to talk with me, and I try to pay equal attention to everyone at that time, so that time equal attention to everyone will be zero attention to everyone. I'll not be able to focus on anything. So there is a certain level of choosing that we need to do. So some things may be more important at particular times, some things may be less important at other times. So this understanding that there are these principles and details. And what is more important? So I talked about today morning I talked about Shakti and Bhakti. So Shakti is that when we use our talents, we play our roles, we do our dharma by which we get some artha. So we play our particular roles and we get something of value. And through that artha we get some Shakti. So there are times when a particular material thing may become more important. But that is required for our service to Krishna. So contemplation means what is how important for me when? I need to carefully contemplate that. And what is the big thing? I keep that big thing big and I keep the small thing small. So this now if we learn the principle that I need to be adaptable, then when I am contemplating, okay, what is negotiable for me and what is negotiable, how much for me? That we need to contemplate based on time, place, circumstance. And the last part is in ACT, that is transformation. Now transformation means that sometimes you may decide that okay, this is my range, this is what I would like to do, but this is the basic minimum I need to do, it's non-negotiable for me. But suppose we start getting pushed below the non-negotiable level, then at that time what do we do? So how do we deal with that? So for that, if we consider this principle of dharma, by dharma what I mean? Dharma is harmonious belonging. That whatever larger whole we are a part of, that we contribute something to that whole and we get something from that whole. So if we are working in a job, we do our work and we get a salary from there. So that is, dharma is harmonious belonging. Now, when something is off, something is, in our life is becoming imbalanced, we need to be adaptable, we need to make some changes. So how do we make the changes? Basically, I like to use the acronym MET. Now when we contemplate that Krishna is present in this situation also, that this situation is arranged for me by Krishna's plan. And when we contemplate the situation, broadly there are three options we can consider. One is we may mitigate. The other is we may emigrate. And third is we may tolerate. So mitigate, emigrate and tolerate. Let's consider each of these. So what is the situation over here? That say in this particular situation, if I go back over here, okay. Okay. So the situation is that I feel as if I am giving a lot and what I am getting is much lesser. It will require our attention. In the temple, if there is some major festival, temple, some senior guests are coming, some special guests are coming. So that time we may decide, I want to focus more attention over there. So according, in our various areas of life, we need to have a broader sense of balance. So in the Mahabharata, when we talk about this belonging, what Narad Muni tells Yudhishthira Maharaj, that when we belong to broadly 3 circles, so he says that as a grahastha is talking about, don't pursue dharma at the cost of artha and kama. Don't pursue artha at the cost of dharma and kama. And don't pursue kama at the cost of dharma and artha. Now here I am using the word dharma, artha, kama in slightly different sense from what I used earlier in the morning. There I talked about more a sequential sense. These words have multiple of non-flex, aspirational to non-negotiable. So if you are in a job, aspirational, we would like to rise very fast in our career and to grow to the top level. That's aspirational. But non-negotiable, at least whatever work I have been given, I need to do at satisfactory level. So we may, from an aspirational, non-negotiable level, we can be there in any of these 3 areas. So now, when we are functioning, when we are trying to balance, so balance means that all 3 are going to pull us in certain directions, but all 3 are also going to give us something in return. So when we talk about what is a big thing and what is a small thing, sometimes what may happen is that, so I won't talk about these 3 belongings, let's focus on one belonging right now, and that principle applies to everything else. So if I am in a particular hole where I feel that what I am giving is a lot and what I am getting is too little, then one thing we could do is, let's start with tolerate. Now, okay, this job I'm working at, the work culture is not very good over here. My boss is sometimes rude, my colleagues are weird, whatever. I don't like the work culture over there. That's true, but then I may decide that, no, actually the job is paying quite well, and I have a good career growth prospect over here. If I can work over here, it will be very good for my CV, and I can get a better job in future. So we may decide that, okay, this one thing I'm not getting over here, but that is not the big thing for me. Something else is the big thing. So once we understand what is a big thing, then a small thing can be tolerated. So when Krishna talks about tolerance, sometimes we are told that bhakti means we need to tolerate. Yes, of course we need to tolerate. But tolerate what? In 2.14, Krishna is talking about tolerance. But what does tolerance means? Is he telling that, oh, the Kauravas performed so many atrocities on you, they tried to dishonor your wife, they tried to steal your kingdom, but just tolerate it all? Is that what Krishna is saying? No, not at all. When he's saying tam sitikshas of Bharata, what is he saying is, tolerate the pain of fighting Bhishma and Drona. Arjuna just did not want to fight them at all. These were the people from whom he had learned archery. These were the people for whose pleasure he had learned archery. And now these were the people whom he had to kill with that same archery. This was like the worst nightmare scenario for him. I just don't want to do this, Krishna. Arjuna felt. Katham Bhishma Maham says that you are a Kshatriya, you have your dharma. And they have chosen the wrong side. Although it will be painful, tolerate that pain. And that's why before this, he gives intelligence. 2.13 is Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. Intelligence means that the soul is the big thing and the body is the, comparatively speaking, the small thing. So Krishna tells Arjuna that power couple. You come to the husband to get married, you go to the wife to get separated. So, and then Mataji was telling me that sometimes people come with such reasons for separating. So and the system in the West is so segregated that in traditional, maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago, if somebody went to a lawyer, I want to separate. The lawyer, if the lawyer is an older person, the lawyer will also be like uncle or somebody. Lawyer will get advice. Can you tolerate this? Just leave it. Don't take it so seriously. But now say their idea is if they want to heal their marriage, there's a counselor. You go to the counselor. But the attorney should just do what your desire is. So she said I was feeling. Now that may not be the reason. There may be other reasons also. But whatever, the fact that she considered this reason to be enough reason. It's a small thing. They want to speak of, not agreeing on air conditioner. There's so many people who don't have any air conditioner in their homes. There are people who don't have homes also. Isn't it? So it's a small thing that can be made into a big thing. And that would be intolerance. But sometimes a big thing can become small. And that is not healthy. When big thing becomes small means what? That when I go to Australia, there's one place where one young man, he's also very analytical, intellectual. He likes, but say all the chairs are occupied and you have to sit on the floor. Now, it is a little inconvenient, but okay, the class is only going to go about 6 hours, so I can tolerate it. No, the class may go for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, that much time I can manage. So it's not a pleasant thing, but it's a small thing, it's bearable. So tolerance is meant to keep small things small. Tolerance should not lead to big things becoming small. Then that will not be tolerance, that will be impotence. That will be powerlessness. We are letting ourselves be weak and be exploited by others. So tolerance means what? We are able to keep small things small and we keep big things big. And that may become a big thing for them. So, okay, this job is a difficult phase right now. Maybe I have to deal with it because there's a deadline over there. Let me just deal with this phase. But that phase will get over. So, sometimes what happens is, under the pressure of the moment, we might make a small thing into a big thing. So, tolerate means, okay, this is not pleasant, but it is not that big a thing. So let me tolerate it. So one way we can transform our situation is just tolerate it. Tolerate because there's something else which is a big thing which I am able to pursue. Yeah, this job is taking a lot of my time, but at least it's giving me some financial buffer. In future, I'll be able to focus on my spirituality. So we may decide that. Now, is that logic valid? It may be, it may not be. But it depends again on time. Right refers to the conservatives, generally speaking. Those who are on the right are concerned about what is right in the existing system. And they want to protect and preserve that. So the right are generally more concerned about individual responsibility, individual effort. They say that you work harder, you raise yourself by the bootstraps. The system is fine, you are not fine. You are not working hard enough. If you are not getting paid enough, if you are not growing nicely, if you are not, things are not working for you, it is you who are the problem. You should learn to work harder, you should learn to be tolerant, you should learn to be more flexible. That's the primary concern of the right. And yes, sometimes, we are not getting enough from the larger whole because we are not contributing enough to the larger whole. Now, the left is concerned about those who are left. I don't want to tolerate, I don't want to mitigate. I just don't want to belong to this whole only. So if our work culture in the team is not very good, we may escalate it to HR and we tell them this is like this, this is like this. This person uses this language, this person speaks like this person manipulates or blackmails or whatever. And they may take some action and things may change. But sometimes we may decide that I just don't want to be involved in this. So we may emigrate. Emigrate means we may decide that, okay, I don't want to be a part of this thing. I may join some other company. So emigrate is also a valid option. Emigrate means what? And if I am here, I may just decide that I don't want to be a part of this only, I go somewhere else and I become a part of some other larger whole. And there I contribute and there I get something back. So we talked about these three approaches: mitigate, emigrate, tolerate. Now if you see, the Pandavas in their lives adopted each of these. When Bhima was poisoned initially, he survived and he wanted to come back and beat Duryodhana into a pulp. So he wanted to teach him a lesson. And Yudhishthir said, don't make this accusation publicly. You don't have any evidence, it will just be your word against his word. And we are new over here, we don't know who is going to support us. We don't want to break our family apart. So he says, tolerate it. Now, after that, when they were attempted to be burnt alive in the Varnavath forest, then what did they do? They said that this is a big conspiracy. Duryodhana couldn't have done it alone by himself. So we don't. If I go back over here, tolerate, mitigate and emigrate. Now mitigate is not retaliate. The Pandavas, they are not focused, you did this to me so I'll do this to you. That was not their mood. They fought not for revenge so much, for justice more. And that's why they didn't take it out on Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is powerless. Without Duryodhan, he was not going to harm them anyway. So they did not really take any revenge against Dhritarashtra. Now, emigrate is not run away. When we run away from something, our mind is still fixated on that thing only. Oh, why did this happen? Why did this person do like this? Emigrate means, okay, I have better things to do in my life. I don't want to be caught in that. Weird. Similarly, tolerate is not suffocate. Suffocate means that which is a big thing we are not able to do at all. We are feeling emotionally, physically, completely paralyzed. You become very resentful. It's not that. In psychology, these three are called as fight, flight, or freeze. So what differentiates these responses from fight, flight or freeze is the service attitude. That why are we doing this? Okay, what is the best way I can do my dharma and I can do my bhakti and I can serve Krishna? So when we have this attitude, then what will happen is we will be able to deal with whatever situation comes in our life. We will, okay, what should I tolerate? To what extent? When should I decide that I can't tolerate this, so I have to fix the system? I just don't want to be a part of the system only, I want to leave this. So that's all is valid. So for example, when somebody takes vanaprastha or sannyas, comes in the last stage of their life, in some way they are emigrating at that time. So that's fair enough. There is a Deshikal Patra, time place candidate, different approaches are possible. But with respect to the process, we need to understand what is the best way I can move ahead from where I am right now. I'll conclude with one more example of these three things, and we'll conclude that this applies, is tolerate, mitigate, emigrate. It also applies in Srila Prabhupada's life. Now, Srila Prabhupada, if we consider in India, he had been trying to share Krishna Bhakti for a long time. And practically from 1922 to 1965, he was trying to share Krishna Bhakti in India. Now for various reasons, it just didn't work out. Now Prabhupada didn't say that, oh, it's all Krishna's plan, maybe Krishna doesn't want me to preach. He doesn't want me to be successful. Prabhupada didn't think like that. His Guru Maharaj had said, if you go for a program and nobody comes, then speak to the walls. Now Prabhupada could have thought, maybe Krishna wants me to speak to the walls for the rest of my life. Prabhupada did not think like that. Now Prabhupada could have thought of many reasons. He could have thought that, oh, this is India, this is 1960s India. I am trying to speak in English, better let me try to speak in Hindi. Better let me try to speak in Bengali. He could have thought that, maybe I am speaking too much philosophy, let me speak some katha. And that way people will come more. But Prabhupada kept his spiritual master's instruction in mind. Spiritual master wanted him to speak in English, share Krishna Bhakti in English, and he wanted him to go to the West. So Prabhupada decided that Indians are not so attracted to spirituality at least philosophical spirituality, in terms of serious sadhana, because they are too infatuated by the West. So Prabhupada, from here what did he do? He emigrated. He came to America. Now, when he came to America, at that time, now there are many things also. Within this also, if we consider, there was Prabhupada that tried to build a temple in Jhansi. In fact, he tried to start the basis of an international organization, League of Devotees, had tried to start in Jhansi. But the people over there, they somehow stopped being supportive. Some of them tried to sabotage his efforts. And Prabhupada decided it's not worth the fight. He said, let me leave. He said, this is a small city, these people are not serious and not so important. Now when Prabhupada came to America, he was staying in the house of Sally and Gopal Agarwal. Now they were not, within a few hours of spending time with them, Prabhupada says that they are not really spiritual seekers. They had sponsored him and hosted him simply because they wanted to do a courtesy for their father-in-law. So then Prabhupada was not a pushy person in the sense that he was not going to force people. So when he was staying there, Prabhupada used to cook his bhoga and offer it to Krishna, and in that same fridge they had beef. At that time there was this great protein myth was there. So their idea was that for children you should give them good proteins, and the best source of proteins is liquefied beef. So they're feeding kids liquefied beef. It's horrible it was, but anyway, that was there. So then this Sally Agarwal, she had some understanding of Indian cultural sensibility. So she said to Prabhupada, Swamiji, I'm sorry, but I have only one fridge. And Prabhupada said, think nothing about it. Think nothing about it. Now if Prabhupada had found that later in a fridge in ISKCON, some liquefied beef had come, but Prabhupada said, think nothing about it. Prabhupada said, think nothing except of this. How did this happen? Who let this happen? Isn't it? At that time, Prabhupada tolerated. He tolerated because this is the big thing over there was not trying to impose vegetarianism on this particular person who was incidentally hosting him. His big thing was he wanted a place to stay where he could find serious spiritual seekers and he could share it with them. Now later on, so sometimes he emigrated, sometimes he tolerated. Later on when the Juhu temple came up, at that time, the person who was selling the land, that person was a very double-dealing kind of person. He wanted to take the money and not give the land also. And Prabhupada at that time said, if he wants to steal Krishna's land, he will have to go over my dead body. So Prabhupada fought over there, he mitigated. And the point is that ultimately, his focus was on how best can I serve Krishna. How best can I serve Krishna. Now the same Juhu project, if we consider, does anyone know when the Juhu temple was inaugurated? 1978, yes. It was Jan 14, Sankranti day. And when did Srila Prabhupada depart from the world? Yes, November 14, 1977. So just 2 months. Now, Prabhupada had fought, not just metaphorically, even literally. There were some thugs that attacked devotees and Prabhupada had fought for that. And at that time, Prabhupada could have said to Krishna, Krishna, just let me be here to see this temple being inaugurated. But just a few days before his departure, when one of his supporters asked him, Swamiji, do you have any last desires? Prabhupada replied, Kuch ichha nahi. Kuch ichha nahi. While Prabhupada had a great desire, would Prabhupada have not liked to see the temple inaugurated? Of course he would have. But for Srila Prabhupada, his desire for serving Krishna or his desire for a particular service to Krishna, that particular service is that we should have this temple inaugurated. Prabhupada was not resentful at all. So for him, building a temple, he had fought for it. That was Artha. It was important. But Artha never became more important than Paramartha. Sometimes what happens is we want to do something, we make our plans, and it doesn't work. See, we all can, in our bhakti, we can have desires. And that's fair enough. It's not that we have to give up all our desires. But sometimes we don't only have desires, the desires to serve Krishna, they become demands from Krishna. Krishna, this must happen. And sometimes not only demand, they become ultimatums. Krishna, if you don't do this, I'll never come to your temple again. So as devotees, we cannot, while we have lots of things to do in life, and sometimes we may tolerate, sometimes when we are learning to balance, we need to be clear about what is the big thing for me and what is the small thing for me. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our topic today was about balancing material and spiritual life. In that, I talked about the process. So I used an acronym. What was the acronym? ACT. A-C-T. A was what? Adaptability. So we talked about how bhakti, it's not digital so much as it is analog. So analog means there's a multi-level approach. We talked about how 12.11 Krishna gives multiple levels at which you can practice. 12.8 to 12.11. And what does that mean? That temple, there is our home, there is our office. So dharma, artha, kama, we understand, temple, office and home. So all three are important. And each of these may need to be prioritized at a particular time. So Krishna talks about tolerance in 2.14, but before that, he talks about intelligence. At first we need to know what is the big thing, and then we can decide how to deal with it. And last three was transformation. So once we understand, okay, this is the big thing, this is a small thing, then how do we go about transforming? We discussed three principles in that. What was it? Mitigate. Mitigate is we try to fix the larger whole that we are part of. That is more of a left-wing approach, we could say. Tolerate is...
So many verses which actually emphasize or focus more on the renunciation, or there are sometimes Srila Prabhupada's statements also which are very emphasized on renunciation. For example, a few days back I was listening one class where Prabhupada mentioned that, if you don't have money, don't think about dal, just eat the sabji, but don't waste time. Human life is so important. So when we read or listen these kind of statements, so as a grihastha, how we should, with what consciousness and how should we understand these?
In scripture and in Acharya statements also, there is, if we consider scripture, there is a timeless or a universal element to it, and there is a timely or contextual element to it. So if we consider, the Bhagavatam is spoken at a particular time in a particular context. Parikshit Maharaj is going to die in 7 days, and he has accepted that curse. So once he has accepted that curse, Shukdev Goswami will tell all stories from the scriptures in such a way that it will emphasize his conviction, his decision for that purpose. So in many ways, as I started the first session over here, if we are here, there are two ways to go to the spiritual level. One is we directly leave the world and go to the spiritual level. The other is we go through the world to the spiritual level. So broadly speaking, the Bhagavatam, especially in terms of the examples, is talking about turning away from the world to go towards Krishna. The Gita is talking about the same message of bhakti, but is more of acting in the world and transforming. So we have to consider the context. In many ways, when Srila Prabhupada spoke, Srila Prabhupada's primary audience was his Western disciples who had renounced everything practically. And if you see, just Prabhupada did give those classes. At the same time, when he was interacting with people, it was not that at an individual level he's telling you renounce the world, you renounce the world, you renounce the world. Prabhupada worked with people where they were. Many of the life members who contributed many big ways to Prabhupada's mission, he was not constantly guilting them into giving this up and giving that up. No, however they can be engaged in Krishna's service, they've engaged in Krishna's service. Yes, we eventually do need to come to the level of renouncing the world and exclusively focusing on Krishna. But that doesn't mean that everybody can do it immediately. So, in general, what happens is that the mind tends to go towards extremes. So, Prabhupada's statements often are in a context where money is, say, too important. Everybody is constantly thinking about money. But if somebody can go to the other extreme also, as money is not at all important. Now the problem is, you can apply this to anything. If somebody can say health is so important and they're constantly conscious of only health only, and they say, okay, my daily sadhana is I'll do exercise, I'll go to the gym, I have no time for japa because I have only time for gym, no japa. Now that is too much attention to the body. But some level of attention to the body is required. So we can go towards both extremes. So Prabhupada was primarily speaking to an audience which is too infatuated by the body and the world. And that is a serious danger. I would say that is the danger that most of us have. But sometimes we can go to the other danger also, that we can neglect everything. And there are statements of Prabhupada which address this also. So that's that well-known incident that, and when Prabhupada was encouraging everybody to distribute books, at that time the temple leaders told everyone in Grahasthas you should focus on book distribution. And there were young mothers who had young children, small babies. They told them also, you leave your baby with one caretaker and you go and distribute books. And when Prabhupada came to know about this, he wrote a famous letter to one devotee Mataji who was a mother. She said, your children, taking care of them is as important as taking care of the deities. These are Vaikuntha children, these are special souls who are sent to us by Krishna. So Prabhupada emphasized that also. In many ways, Prabhupada presumed that the audience will understand certain things. It's like on a foundation of dharma, there is paradharma. Dharma is like basic responsibility. That there is something more also to be pursued. But if the basic foundation, dharma itself is being neglected, then that would be a problem. So dharma means whichever unit we are, we need to belong properly to that unit. So too much anxiety is not good, but too much negligence is also not proper. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the amazing class. The question is regarding the negotiable and non-negotiable things, particularly about the negotiable ones. So sometimes we struggle with spiritual inertia. So once we negotiate something, it is very difficult to go back to the original standard. So for example, if my aspiration regarding chanting, for example, my non-negotiable is chanting 16 rounds, but my aspiration is chanting 16 rounds early in the morning at 4 o'clock. But for some reason, one day I'm not able to do it at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was able to still finish my 16 rounds. But then going back to 4 o'clock in the morning, it becomes challenging. Yeah. So how do we deal with that?
Yes. See, the problem is that when we decide something, like when we adjust a standard to come to a lower, then the lower becomes the standard. And that's how we start going default. So now what do? It's generally when negotiation is being done. Experience. Oh, when I used to do this, then it was actually so, I felt so, I got a head start for my day. And I just felt so good at that time. Sometimes what happens are, yesterday I told that our mind tends to rationalize. It's like, so I'm not lazy. I'm just in an exclusive relationship with my bed. So sometimes we may.
I just want some clarification on that.
Okay, good question. Now, this tolerance is very different from the context of what you say persistence or how changes happen. Small steps can make a big difference. But what I'm talking about is not so much the action. Generally, the whole context of tolerance is not what I am doing. The context of tolerance is what is happening to me. Isn't it? When something is happening to me, what should I do about it? So in that context, when something is happening to me, is it a small thing which I should just live with, or is it a big thing that I need to do something about? So we are talking primarily about that. What you are talking about is about, that's in a different context of say persistence or diligence. So there small things make a big difference. Generally, change is often evolutionary before it becomes revolutionary. So in terms of what we are doing, we should never devalue small steps. I was talking more in terms of what is happening to us.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. The seed of my question is from yesterday's session. In the beginning, you mentioned that Duryodhana remembered or counted everyone except Krishna in the battlefield. And when I read Bhagavad Gita for the first time, I was thinking about the mindset and mood of Arjuna before knowing that Krishna is the supreme personality or seeing the Vishwarup, and after knowing that he's a supreme personality. And before I came to Krishna consciousness, comfort of Arjuna in that battlefield, after knowing he's a supreme soul or supreme personality.
Yeah.
How do I get to that stage?
When I find out, I'll let you know. For us, the world is big and Krishna is small. But as we grow spiritually, what happens is the world becomes small and Krishna becomes big for us. So essentially, this change happens to us gradually as we keep practicing bhakti. At the same time, we all, during our regular practice of bhakti, do experience some moments when the whole world just fades into irrelevance and this Krishna becomes the biggest reality. Maybe sometimes we are hearing a very immersive class, sometimes we are in ecstatic kirtan, sometimes we are doing some puja and we just get completely absorbed in Krishna. So we do have that experience sometimes, and those moments need to be cherished. So in general, when Krishna becomes manifest to us, when we start feeling that there is some higher presence, there is some higher reality, those moments we cherish. And when we cherish those moments, gradually Krishna will see that cherishing and Krishna will start giving those moments more and more. That means cherish those moments means maybe describe those moments, put in your words, try to see what happened before that, how did you experience that, how can you replicate that, or how can we can't replicate it, but how can we make our consciousness more receptive for its repetition or replication. So that way, it is through our own experience that it happens. And slowly, it's another way to understand is Krishna being the bigger reality and smaller realities. If this is my consciousness, then within the consciousness, the world is the big thing. And then Krishna is something small over here. Krishna is somewhere in the background of speaking, can be very scary at times. Oh, what are people thinking about me? Am I pronouncing properly? Do I look proper? All these things are important. The external context will be very much in our consciousness. But as we keep practicing bhakti, as we keep doing that particular service, gradually with the passage of time, what we are doing, in the external specifics we will be aware of that. But that we are doing it for Krishna, that we are doing it in a mood of service to our Lord, that will become bigger and bigger. So it's an incremental process. Like I said, it's evolutionary before it becomes revolutionary. So the example that is given is of sunrise. So if you're going out for a moment, then do that more and more. This can be our uddipan in our spiritual life. Uddipan is our particular spiritual stimulus. So focus whenever Krishna is manifest. Whenever Krishna is manifest, we focus on Krishna. Krishna is manifest means that we are in a place where Krishna is manifest. but appreciate whenever we have a memorable spiritual experience. We have a spiritual experience. And repeat wherever we relish Krishna's presence.
It's like he needs him and he's taking care of him. So that at some point it feels like he's on a platform of bhava bhakti. And what your example gave, it seems like, is moving more towards the jnana side. So is that somehow correct me if I'm wrong, is that something that is going from, isn't it a step down from from bhava down to the jnana level?
Not necessarily. Krishna in says that the perfection of devotion, buddha bhava samanvita. He says buddha is a person who is enlightened, has buddhi. And bhava samanvita, bhava is also there. So the idea is ultimately bhakti is about love for Krishna. And love means it's a very deeply enriching experience. So at the same time, that experience, it's not meant to be a one-time experience. It's a relationship with Krishna. And relationship means we do use our intelligence. Without using our intelligence, we cannot function. So, say the gopis in Vrindavan, for example, they are absorbed in bhava for Krishna. But when they are going to cook for Krishna, they use their intelligence, okay? What can I best cook for Krishna? What does Krishna like? What resources do I have right now? What is the weather? They consider all those factors and try to offer the best things to Krishna. So, even when we are at a level of experiencing constant spiritual emotion, even then, we will still use our intelligence for how best can we serve Krishna. And if we are not at the level of constant spiritual emotion, at that time we'll have to consider how best can I stay connected with Krishna. So it's like the relationship with buddhi and bhava. Buddhi and bhava, if we are at the level of being seers, if we are already spiritual seers who are connected with Krishna, at that time buddhi is how to please Krishna the most. Now, what can I do right now? By which I can please Krishna in the best possible way. But we are not at the level of bhava, if at the level of seeker right now. Occasionally we are able to connect with Krishna. Then, that how to connect with Krishna. Pleasing Krishna is a long way ahead for us. But let me at least stay connected with Krishna. So it's not that buddhi is unimportant. Buddhi just plays different roles at different times. Jiva Goswami says in the Sandarbhas that till we come to the level of priti or bhava, it is buddhi. Krishna is most important. There we don't need buddhi to convince ourselves to love Krishna, but we need buddhi to serve Krishna in the best possible way that will please him. Okay. So thank you very much for your thoughtful participation. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Tai Gaur Premanande. So it is a joy to be here with all of you, and several of you attended all three of the classes. I appreciate your enthusiasm in doing that. Sometimes my classes can be quite intellectually exhausting. So I once came to a place for 1 week, and one devotee was joking with me, see, 1 week is enough to make people weak. So I think 1.5 days is also enough. Thank you. I'm amazed to see all of your enthusiasm, and I pray that Krishna's blessings keep showering on all of you, and keep yourself going closer to Krishna and helping others also move closer to Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for your prayers and blessings and mercy. And we hope that you'll come again. And for us, I think we can manage a week, right, everybody? Yes. I think we have a crowd that can manage a week easily. So hopefully we'll see you again for a longer time. Please keep us in your prayers, and we appreciate your mercy and blessings. Once again, thank you very much, Prabhu, for giving us the time that you did. Thank you to Shiji Priya and Ishwara Gauranga Prabhu for hosting Prabhu at their house. And all the devotees who participated in bringing the prasadam to all three homes, thank you so much, because you really did a wonderful job.